what I have right in front of us is two different sizes of the Apple Watch SE 2nd generation. As on my right side, right here, I have the 40mm, and we're gonna go ahead and compare it against the 44mm to help you decide on which one is the right one for your wrist. So I do have a tape measure, and I will be measuring it live on camera so you can visually see the real differences, and I'm going to share my ownership experience between owning these two Apple Watches and elaborate more on helping you decide on which one works best for you. So let's go straight to the basics. 40mm can be purchased for just $250 US, and then it's $50 more if you need the larger 44mm. And if you go on Apple's website, you could customize the different bands you could select from, as you can actually get the new Nike Loop band, as you see right here, with it. But when it comes to measuring the two, let me just quickly measure my wrists. So front forward, my wrist size is about 3 inches. But if we wrap it around entirely, I'm looking about 6.2 inches. And from my understanding, that's like the sweet spot where you have the capability to go either with the 40 or the 44mm. And if I put the 40mm on my wrist, a thing I want to show you, and this is definitely a massive selling point, is this is how it looks like. But not only that, the beauty about this, if you work out a lot at the gym or you find yourself doing a lot of wrist movement, my wrist, my hand doesn't intervene with the digital crown as well as the power button. Meanwhile, if we switch to the 44mm, I do have a easier chance of making contact with the power button, and sometimes even the digital crown if I'm like holding on the barbell while flat bench pressing, as an example. Pulling out the tape measure one more time, you can visually see how much space it takes up. And if you do the exact same thing with the 40mm, why am I getting bombarded with notifications now as I'm filming? Here's the 40, and this barely takes up an inch. And then we compare the two side by side, and we go ahead and make things even by switching to an actual watch face that both are using. The smaller 40 is using the all new pellet watch face, and here they are. You can see the complications right here on the corner. You can see how small they are in terms of text size. And if we go ahead and launch Control Center and go scroll down to the text size adjustment, here you can see a visualization how much text size one screen can actually fit in. So at max size right now, you can see where it says preference reading size, you could barely see that on the 40mm. And then we go back all the way down to the smallest text size font that could fit. You can see that it barely takes up the last row comparing it with the 40mm Apple Watch. And if you think the 40mm Apple Watch is the smallest Apple Watch that ever existed, it's not. This is the older 38mm Apple Watch. It's dead, unfortunately, but you can see how big the older screen is comparing it with the 40mm. So the 38 is noticeably a lot smaller. The 40 is like a nice sweet spot. Meanwhile, if you take the bigger size version of the 44mm, the 45, here it is side by side. I'll go ahead and once more switch it to that pellet watch face, and you'll be able to visually see it even more with comparing it with the 44mm. And don't even get me started with the 49mm Ultra Apple Watch. Maybe I'll do that comparison in the near future, but right now we're just strongly focused on the 40 and the 44. And when it comes to interacting with its different menus, this is how it looks like. Same row of apps in the app launcher. List view looks exactly the same too, just with the smaller screen size just obviously being smaller. And this is how it looks like with your smart stacks, activity. It's able to fit all the information right here as well. This is the text that we can see. I'm going to increase the size to normal though. Let me go ahead and select the text size to be default. But if we go ahead and launch CNN.com, this is how the two look like text size wise. So on the very top, again, you can kind of see how this row right here is chopped up and this one is not. And then we go ahead and launch the actual web page. For websites, it's not too noticeable, as both are able to fit as much text as much as possible in the screen, which is quite impressive. And then when it comes to overall screen brightness, both of these can go up to 1000 nits. But I do find that the larger 44mm can be easier to view in direct sunlight. But regardless, most of the time I do find myself having to cover the display to fully see what's going on my Apple Watch display in terms of notification and everything else. There's no always on display hardware found on both of these two SE 2nd generation Apple Watches, as it was only the Series 5 and newer Apple Watches that feature the always on display, including the Ultra and the Ultra 2. So although these are indeed OLED displays, they do not feature always on display, which from my experience, most people actually prefer that. A lot of people who do have always on display tend to typically turn it off. Then the SE does not have a keyboard, an integrated keyboard from watchOS 10, but you can download third-party apps like FlickType, but by default you can still always use Scribbles to type whatever you need to type. I'm using a small 44 so you can visually see and generally understand how it's like having to type a message with this. But third-party apps like FlickType does give you keyboard functionalities on your Apple Watch. So here I could type in a message, and then tap done on the top corner. I could select a contact and it'll actually send a written text message to somebody using a third-party keyboard app. So that's how it looked like on this 40mm. Let me show you how it looks like on the larger 44. So here we are using Scribbles, and I have to admit it is easier using Scribbles on the larger screen than it was on the 40mm. But if we download this app, keep in mind you still have access to dictation if you want to verbally say what you want to text. But if you go ahead and open up FlickType on the 44mm, unfortunately I'm having a hard time launching FlickType. I already reset the Apple Watch a couple of times. It still thinks it's not installed on my iPhone, even though it is. Regardless, I'm able to get the task done on the smaller 40mm Apple Watch. And then yes, although it does have a larger body, that means it does indeed have a larger display. But since it has a larger display, it doesn't really benefit it because both are able to last about the same battery life. Especially during my battery life test comparison, I've noticed that the SE2 has a better battery life than the older Series 8 Apple Watches and older models as well, because it came really close to the Series 9 Apple Watch. I'll include links to that battery test video in the description down below. But the SE2 Apple Watch did receive special treatment from Apple, which does make sense due to the fact that this is a new Apple Watch that Apple is directly still selling in a retail store, so it's better in performance as well compared to the older Apple Watches, including the Series 8, as the boot up time showed that the SE2 was really close to the Series 9 Apple Watch and beats the Series 8 and older series models. But the SE2 on watchOS 10 is extremely energy efficient, at least on the latest watchOS 10. Conclusion, if you have to decide between these two Apple Watches, it is a tough decision. But if you're somebody who always wears like long sleeves at the end of the day, find yourself wearing a suit most often, easier to put a sleeve over or cover your wrists with the 40mm against the 44mm. But if you have a much larger wrist, the 44mm will definitely be the best choice for you. So if your wrist size is similar to mine, I find that the 40mm is much more comfortable comparing it against the 44mm Apple Watch. But I do prefer using the larger display just due to the fact that its display can show me much more information. But again, if you have to really interact with your Apple Watch, it's easier just interacting with like a message and stuff just by using your iPhone. So I hope this video was able to clarify a couple of things, answer your question. If you have some more questions, feel free to comment down below, and I'll try to get back to you and answer your question in the comment section. And if you wish to watch more, again, you can check out that battery life test video right over there, where I also test out the performance between every generation Apple Watch. Thanks so much for watching.